Happy Friday. Welcome to the Nova Wealth Management Finance Friday. Glad that you all could join us today. As you can see, I have the show to myself today. Both Amy and Jim are away, getting some much needed rest and relaxation. So I have the keys, and I'm excited for our topic today. Again, so glad that you can join us. It's been a busy week. I mean, it's been a lot of travel. We've been to LA, we've been to Atlanta. We're going to be in DC next week, meeting with some of the movers and shakers and leaders in this industry. Hey, Jerome, how's it going, buddy? Glad you could join us. And it's been pretty awesome. Before we go any further, beautiful day in Florida right now, leading into a very beautiful weekend, a very special weekend, and that is Mother's Day. And on behalf of Jim and Amy and the team, and from myself, we want to first and foremost wish all of you mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. I know that I would not be anywhere close to being the man that I am today if it was not for my mother. And I'm sure many of you out there feel the same way. So just want to do that real quick. Happy Mother's Day. Hopefully you all have some great plans set up for your mother. Show your appreciation, show your love. Mothers, we love you. Today's topic is it's unfortunate, yet it's very needed. We've spent the last few weeks on this show really talking about the basic fundamentals of basic finances. We've hit on the importance of building savings before extending out into more extensive investment practices. We've talked about budgeting. We've talked about protecting your credit. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to advance these conversations, and we'll probably get into more specific investments, not recommendations, but just get into more specifics. But this week, in all of our travel, there have been some prevailing themes that have just repeated themselves just over and over again. And it really took me back to about, say, 8 years ago. It's 2010, maybe a little bit earlier than that. I was working for a private equity company, a private real estate company at the time, and I had been called down to South Florida to be or to act as a real estate specialist. This was an advisor who had a client. He was a professional ball player. He had put money into a real estate deal, a private placement, and didn't feel comfortable about it. So he had asked me to come in to take a look at it and, answer a few questions. And sadly to say, it was on that day that I had to reveal to that athlete that, his investment had been put into something that wasn't really good. It was not structured correctly. It inevitably turned out to be not a money making plan, but a money losing plan. Well, it was a money making plan. It was a money making plan for the financial professional, or let me say financial unprofessional, right? Because there was nothing professional about the individual who placed him in that investment. And over the last week, as we've went out and visited relationships and met new people, I'm sad to say that I've heard this same story told over and over again. And back then, I left that meeting with the thought that before I had ever walked into that room and taken a look at this investment, I was already too late. The decision had been made, the paperwork had been signed, the money had been invested, it had been mismanaged, misappropriated, and the opportunity for that athlete to recover that money, I mean, it was slim to none. And from that point on, I felt that it was, and this is what all of us feel like over here at Nova. We feel like our job is to be a protector. We want to get there before the mistake is made. And so before we progress and start talking about more extensively into investments, we just want to talk about basically five, red flags that you kind of want to always be aware of before proceeding into any investment. Also, like to say that this is not to say that I don't believe in the belief that one bad apple spoils the basket. Over the last 15 years, I've had the privilege to work with some of the most talented and professional advisors in our industry. But the way this world works is that it only takes one person, to kind of ruin the image of an entire industry. And we want to prevent that. So today we're going to just cover again, five red flags that you should always be aware of, that you always want to look out for whenever you're looking at an investment. By the way, if you like this video, please like it. You can also visit our page here on Facebook, and you can like it, share it with a friend. You can also follow me at McClendon Mick. I'm getting used to Twitter, so hopefully over the next few weeks you'll see me become a lot more active in that environment. So our first red flag that you want to be aware of is it's just pure, simple word association. All right. There are certain words that go together with investments. There are certain words that don't go together, that should never be included in the same sentence. When I was having the conversation with that individual, and by the way, this is for anyone. This is if you're an athlete, if you're a retiree, if you are accumulating. Look, the financial predators are not going to go away. So since we know they're not going to go away, you have to prepare for them. If you know that it's going to rain, you carry an umbrella. We're giving you your umbrella. So word association, that's our first rule. First rule, the terms high returns with limited risk, guaranteed, those words should never go together. And sometimes there could be a variation of those words. We've often heard stories where it was presented as, I can't say that this is guaranteed, but it has never not performed, so it may as well be guaranteed. All right. Again, certain words should never be used when it comes to investments, should never be used together. Now, one of the easiest ways that you can avoid being susceptible to, just being, pulled in by the promise of high returns with limited risk is become familiar with actual guaranteed investments, because there are some out there. There are certain government issued investments. There are, bank issued investments that are FDIC insured, even insurance company issued products that are backed by the insurance company that do offer guaranteed returns. But if you look at the yields on those types of investments, and typically, if you're looking at a 1-year CD today, I looked this morning, a 1-year CD, the highest that I saw was anywhere from 2 to maybe 2.25%. A 6-year CD, so it's a little bit longer in term, 2.8 to 3.2%. If we were looking at a 10-year bond, right under 3%. So these are the yields that you're actually getting from guaranteed investments. So think about it. If you're in a room and the thought and the idea comes up, or the presentation comes up, low risk, guaranteed high returns in the double digits, red flag. All right. Certain words never go together. At that point, you want to make sure that your antennas go up and you really start paying attention, because you may be walking into a situation that will hurt your ability to retain your capital, right? Or at least get your capital back. So let's move on to so again, if you're just now joining us today, we're covering, some of the red flags in investing. We want to give you your, layer of protection, your shield of protection. Before we go on and we start talking more extensively about investments, we want to make sure that you know some of the things that you should avoid. So our second red flag is transparency. Now, I believe that, there is never too much information. There's never too much that you could know about an investment, right? And when the details are not clear, when the details appear murky, well, that's where monsters lurk, right? I don't like scary movies, right? I don't watch them often. And it's not because, I'm scary or, maybe I'm a little bit. The Exorcist gets me every time. I can't watch The Exorcist. My wife, she'll laugh at you about that. I don't like spiders, right? But scary movies, I don't like them sometimes because they're so predictable, right? You ever, you're sitting there watching a movie and say the scene takes place on a lake, right? And the lake water is dark and it's murky, and here is the character, they're running through, the path heading toward the lake, and you're screaming, you're shouting, don't go toward the lake, it's murky, the killer's in there, you don't want to go in there, right? Or if it's in the woods and the fog is thick as pea soup, there's no transparency, you say don't go in the woods, you can't see, right? You know that there's danger in there. But sure enough, they go in the woods, they go in the murky lake, and that's it, right? Well, I believe the same thing should exist with your investments. Every investment that you make, it should be as clear as glass. If you don't have all of the details, if it's not transparent, if you can't see how they're making money, what they're investing in, can you go to a website and see the financials? All right. It should be, RT, thanks for joining us, buddy. It should be as clear as glass. You can never have too much information. Now, this is one of the interesting tactics that I think a lot of these predators use. They get a lot of people into a large room and they start making presentations. Not all of the details are there. And, you might be sitting in that room, you have questions, but you look around the room and you see that no one else is raising their hand and no one else is asking questions. So you want to ask questions. And this comes back to something else. If you were to go out and you surveyed, anyone, and you say, okay, what is the greatest fear that most people have? It's speaking in public. A lot of people don't like getting in front of large groups and speaking out. It makes them nervous. And I think that a lot of these individuals, they know that. This is one of the reasons that they gather you in a large room, because they know that most people are not going to speak out. But you have to speak out. Or if you're uncomfortable speaking out in that forum, don't rush. Let the presentation finish and then ask for a follow-up meeting. All right. And if you can get all of the details, all of the information that you want in that follow-up meeting, if you leave that follow-up meeting and the details are as clear as glass, then you might want to consider moving forward at that point. All right. So again, if you're just now joining us, we're talking about 5 red flags that we think everyone should be aware of when they're thinking about investing. Look, the predators are not going away. They're going to be there. So you have to prepare. If you know that it's going to rain, you bring an umbrella. If you don't, to borrow a scene from one of my favorite movies, it's going to rain on your head, right? And we don't want that to happen, okay? So we've covered One, word association. Certain words in a presentation, they just don't go together. High returns, low risk, guaranteed. If you hear those words used in one sentence in the same presentation, red flag. Um, if the details are not clear, if it's not transparent, if you can't leave that meeting feeling comfortable that all of your questions have been answered, right? Red flag. So let's move on to our third one, and I call this one "Beware the Pony Express." I mean, what's the rush? Why are we in such a hurry, right? And this really builds off of point number two, getting all of the details, getting all of your questions answered. A lot of times, and this is, these are, these red flags, they've actually just been pulled from the headlines from recent stories that we've heard about, right? So a lot of times you're in these meetings and, again, these are, there's the word association. They're the things that, we all hear about. It's all right. This meeting is exclusive. It's not for everyone. It's high returns, low risk, guaranteed. And then there's this announcement that this is a limited time offer. So this is an exclusive offer to you and is only open for a limited time, right? And the truth is, listen, there will always be another time to make an investment. No investment that exists today is the best investment. There's no rush. So we can slow the horses. Let's make sure that we have all of our questions answered. Let's make sure that we have all of the details and there is no sense of urgency that requires that you make a decision on the spot. If you don't feel comfortable and if you don't have all of the details that you feel you need to have, don't make the decision. Wait. And listen, if you decide to wait, if you say, hey, I don't feel comfortable now, I don't have all of the information that I need, can we have a follow-up meeting so that, we can discuss this further? And that individual becomes even more persistent, even more adamant about you making a decision right now, because after this moment, this opportunity is not going to be available. Again, flag on that play. Red flag. That is that there are no professionals that I've worked with, that I deal with, that conduct business that way. All right. And there are no regulatory bodies that typically will allow professionals in our industry to act that way. All right. So look, if you don't have all of your details, if it's not transparent, if it's not clear, there is no urgency ever for you to make a decision on the spot. There will always be other opportunities to invest. Now, listen, I know as we go through these details, some of you are saying, oh, this is, I've seen this, this is, no one will get me on these types of tactics. But trust me, all right, Bernie Madoff, was able to, take $65 billion off of his investors. And you don't get $65 billion by going in and robbing from the Sisters of the Poor. All right. If you're getting $65 billion, you're dealing with individuals that are a lot smarter and a lot savvier than you and I are. Right. So know that the individuals that engage in these tactics, they're smart. All right, they sit around and they think about how they can separate you from your hard-earned revenue. All right, so don't think that you would not be subject to it. Don't think that they won't find a way to come after you. They will. I almost like to imagine there's this den of thieves, having their annual predators ball where they sit around and concoct these outlandish schemes of how to separate you for your money. They're smart and they're not going away. But if we kind of identify some of these red flags, we hope that it'll prepare you. So going back to number one, word association. Certain words in a presentation should never, ever be used together. Guaranteed high returns, low risk, red flag. The devil is in the details. That's number two. There should be transparency. You can never have too much information. How much is enough information? Enough information. Enough information to where you feel comfortable moving forward. Number three, beware the Pony Express. There is no rush. If there is extensive pressure for you to move and invest right now, that is a red flag. Pump your brakes. All right, pump your brakes. Let's think about this. I'll decide later. All right. The fourth one, and this is one that I'm starting to see a little bit more frequently, because the market has been extremely volatile. I mean, we had a tremendous end to 2017. The beginning of this year was a little bit rocky. And we've seen a lot of volatility in the stock market. And when we start to see volatility, that's when a lot of fear and angst starts to enter into our thought process. And we start thinking, all right, are there other options, other alternatives that we could possibly pursue for investing? And often, real estate. Real estate often comes up as, a great landing spot. As a matter of fact, we've had so many questions about real estate over the last couple of weeks. I think that I'll talk to Amy about it, Amy and Jim, but I think next week we may actually delve into real estate. A lot of people are wondering, hey, is there a bubble? Are prices high? I know they're certainly higher than they were a year ago, but I think we may talk a little bit more about that. But to go to the point, liquidity and volatility, liquidity and volatility are opposite sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other when it comes to investing. All right? You can't have liquidity in an investment without having volatility in investment. That's really what the stock market is, right? When everyone is buying in, it goes up, and when they get afraid, they start selling, it goes down. So liquidity is your ability to liquidate an asset to get your capital back, all right? And that increases the volatility. Fear, angst, anxiety, it all leads to volatility. Liquidity and volatility are opposite sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. So when it comes to certain real estate investments, you want to be aware of presentations that say they can reduce or lower your volatility significantly while not impacting your liquidity, right? And so with a lot of these deals, you want to know that if you're going to invest in, especially in the case of private placements, all right, you have to be willing to give up a significant amount of your liquidity. Most of them will require that you invest yourself, you commit for anywhere from up to a 5 to maybe a 10-year investment window. You want to know what type of liquidity schedule they have, when and how can you get your money back, if you decide that you want to leave early. All right. You also want to know how much of your money you can get back. So liquidity and volatility are opposite sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. So if you're reducing volatility, oftentimes you're going to have to give up a certain amount of your liquidity. Know that going in. Also know if you're giving up liquidity, what is the plan? What is the schedule? How, when, and how much of your money can you get back if you choose to liquidate that investment earlier? Now, again, if someone is promising you liquidity or along with lowering your volatility, without even lowering your volatility without impacting your liquidity at all, red flag. All right, that's something you want to. I'm not saying that there might be something inherently wrong with that investment, but I'd say you definitely want to turn up your antennas and make sure that you're getting all of the information. And again, we've often seen that to be the case with certain real estate investments. Again, this is not an indictment against real estate investments. I think they're some of the best ones out there, but it would be an indictment to the way that some people will present them. All right. It is an indictment against that. You want to know that when you're investing in tangible real assets, there is limited liquidity. Now, so if you're just joining us, we're talking about 5 red flags that will hopefully keep you from getting scammed. I mean, look, the predators are out there; they're not going away. So you have to prepare for them. All right, as long as there's a sun in the sky in the daytime and a moon in the sky at night, there will be people out there that want to profit off of the misfortunes of others, right? And unfortunately, that is also the case in our industry. My job, our job here at Nova Wealth Management is to properly prepare you. You know it's going to rain, get an umbrella. We're helping you get your umbrella. So this last one is probably, it's my favorite one. And I also think that for you, also for a lot of our athlete clients, it's one of the most important. It's one of the most important, right? And so if you've followed 1 through 4, I mean, you've watched for word association. You know, you've listened for the words and presentations that don't make sense. You were sure to get all of the information. You wanted to make sure that all of the details were provided, and at the end of the day, the presentation was as clear as glass. Right? You had all of your questions answered. You didn't rush. You made sure that no one pressured you into making a buy. You took your time. You didn't rush, right? You got all of the information. If it was a real estate deal, you knew about your timeline. You knew that if you were going to reduce your volatility, you might have to you might have to commit yourself to a longer investment window. So the last one I call beware the Trojan horse. Beware the Trojan horse, right? So you didn't know you were going to get a little bit of Greek mythology. You never know what you're going to get on a Nova Wealth show, especially when Mick is doing it. But I don't know if you all remember the story of the Trojan War, right? So here you have Paris of Troy. He goes over to Sparta, and there he meets Helen. They fall in love. Then they go back to Troy. Helen's husband, who is the king of Sparta, Menelaus, he and his brother, they gather a group of soldiers and they come over the ocean and wage war on Troy. A 10-year siege, right? And we all remember the characters on the Greek side. You have Achilles and Ajax, you have Hector, and obviously Paris on the Troy side. For those of you who read the Cliff Notes, know that Hercules was not in the Trojan War. Sorry, it wasn't. But after a 10-year siege, because the defense of Troy was so strong that the Greeks, they couldn't get over the wall, right? They had it locked in 10 years, and then they came up with a scheme, a plot. They pretended to leave, but they left a gift in the form of the Trojan horse, right? And once the citizens of Troy or the soldiers of Troy thought that the Greeks were gone, they went out, they grabbed the horse, they pulled it within the walls of the defense, and then when they went to sleep that night, all of the Greek soldiers came out of the horse, they unlocked the doors, and the Greeks laid waste to the city of Troy. Great story, all right? Some of you should probably go read the book, one of my favorites. What does that have to do with this conversation? Let's tie it all in. You are the city of Troy, right? You are the gold at the end of the rainbow. Your people around you, your trusted professionals, your trusted associates, that's your wall of defense, right? Those are the people that are around you, making sure that the right people or the wrong people are not getting close to you. All right. Financial predators are the Trojan horse. The question is, who is going to pull that Trojan horse into or through your wall of defense? And a lot of times it can be, unfortunately, a close friend or an associate, or even, a financial partnership that you may work with, right? So you want to always be clear. You always want to know if there are any conflicts of interest that exist, right? If now in our business, a referral is the best way that you can say thank you. We all appreciate referrals. But you want to know if someone is referring a financial professional to you, are they being compensated for it? How are they being compensated for it? Are they disclosing that? Our industry really will not allow you to compensate someone without disclosing it. It is a conflict of interest. So, the final point, beware of the Trojan horse. And I think this goes to both parties. You beware of it. Don't let someone bring somebody through your wall of defense, all right, with you not knowing it, because you'll lower your guard. Regardless of who that person is, you make sure that you perform your own due diligence. You scrutinize them as diligently as you would scrutinize anyone else, right? And don't be a pawn. Don't bring a Trojan horse into your circle. All right, so going back, all right, we hope you enjoyed today's program. We're at our 30-minute slide. Today we talked about 5 red flags that we hope will keep you from being caught in a precarious financial position by a financial unprofessional. Number 1, word association. Certain words in the presentation don't go together. 2, transparency. You can never have too much information. 3, what's the rush? This is not the Pony Express. There will always be another deal. 4, liquidity and volatility are opposite sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. If you're going to reduce volatility, a lot of times you're going to have to give up a lot of near-term liquidity. And number 5, and I also think this is the very, very most important, the most important one is beware the Trojan horse. Don't lower your guards when someone that you know or that you affiliate with brings someone to you. Again, happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers out there. If you like this show, like it, share it, visit our Facebook page. You can follow me at McClendon Mick on Twitter. And we look forward to seeing you all next Friday when the rest of the team is together. Have a good weekend.